Systems is you got to start with something really basic, find someone that's successful and copy. That's what I did. I started with coaching programs and I kind of did it their way. And then, okay, I agreed with this. I didn't agree with that. I kind of changed this and this worked for me here. And I hired someone else. I've probably hired everyone out there in the past 25 years. And I've been around this for 52 now. So I've seen it all in every direction. But ultimately, you got to pick someone to follow through on. And you were talking about reading books and I heard this from here. I heard this. It's not about having the amount of knowledge. It's how much knowledge do you apply? We can all read the same books, but if you don't use it and apply it in your framework, it's useless.
This episode of the Chiropractors Edge is brought to you by Mango Voice. Mango Voice is an enterprise-grade VoIP system based in the cloud. Whether you're at the office or on the go, Mango gives you the tools you need to engage customers like never before. This is a product that my team can't live without, and neither should yours.
Hey, docs, welcome to yet again another podcast for the Chiropractors Edge. I'm your host, Dr. Jake Hansen. And I am incredibly blessed to have with me Dr. David Warman. Dr. David Warman is the CEO of Chiro Freedom Producers and creator of Earn Their Care, which we will talk about. But Dr. David, man, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thanks for having me, brother. It's great to be able to talk to the chiropractor in the world there and see how everything is going.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Well, you guys, Doc, you are listening to this podcast again because you're in a position of either great abundance and you're looking to create even greater levels of abundance, or you're kind of in the middle of the ground. You're doing okay, you're thriving, but if you don't show up at work, if you miss a week or two, you kind of suffer, or you're disenchanted. You're losing the love because you have found you're living incongruencies with what really lights you up in your life. So what I would love to do today is I asked David a simple question. David actually answered a whole bunch of my questions that I had before this. And I said, David, man, if you had 30 minutes and the world would only be able to hear these next 30 minutes, what do you want people to know?
I want chiropractors to be able to have a thriving business and not be a slave and an employee to their practice. I grew up in a chiropractic environment. My dad's a chiropractor. My little brother is a chiropractor. My brother-in-law was a chiropractor. So I've seen it all in every dimension. And what I've seen is that we have great people that are great doctors, great practitioners, but not great business people. And if they leave their practice, that practice tanks. And your practice should run without you, not because of you. It should be despite of you. If you actually have a thriving business, you practice because you love to, not because you have to. And that's what I want doctors to be able to have the freedom or the capacity to be able to enjoy their life, their kids, their hobbies, and have a thriving business that runs, then they can have as much fun as possible.
That's the ultimate dream, right? The ultimate dream is to be able to have freedom. That's the American dream. To have freedom to do whatever we want to do, whenever we want to do it, with whom we want to do it with, right? That is the American dream. So let's go over some of the steps, Doc, of what you have created and what you have found in order to get there. And Doc, as we share this with you, we share this constantly in the Chiropractors Edge. There isn't one way to do anything, but you have to find a way. And every single week we have on a different guest who is incredibly successful. And a lot of these events that are a lot of these podcasts that we're filming, they're like, oh yeah, Doc, hey, I'm here in the Bahamas. I popped off on the side, or hey, I'm at my recording studio in the Bahamas, or I'm at my recording studio at the Venetian. I'm at a recording studio in SoFi Stadium. And I just stopped off so I could have this message with you. And then we're off to have some fun today. We're going to go watch a game or go skiing or do whatever. Doc, we want you to be able to have everything you want to have. And it's not just taking vacations. I love what I get to do in my business and my chiropractic practice and my other business. I love it. But I also love that I can have the freedom to do the other things with my family that brings us joy. So let's go over some of those first steps. So, Doc, what do you recommend to the chiropractor? So first and foremost, to the doc who is successful, to the doc who says, I think I want to start creating a side gig, I think I want to start working more on my business and maybe bring in something else that's a passion of mine. What do you first say to those docs? How do they get to that point?
If someone's already got a successful practice going on, I think the biggest key is delegation. You delegate to elevate. So we want to find someone that can do your job 80% as well as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that, then you can delegate almost all of this. And then you get to a point of power where the practice is actually running without you. So I've had 9 of my own practices and I run multiples at the same time. And I had to learn how to use the right people in the right seats and be able to delegate to actually get things done so it wasn't always on me. And I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to that, is because when a lot of practices get to a certain level and when you're on the journey, you hit these road bumps. And a lot of times we hit this plateau or we hit a ceiling. And there's 5 major factors I tell people. It's like when we hit a ceiling, we got to do a few things. One thing is we got to simplify things, because if it's not simple, it's hard to teach, it's not reproducible very easily. The second thing is the delegation. Do you delegate appropriately? And I like people delegating the things that they're not really good at or enjoy doing. Because when I look at it, it's like, if I'm really happy in practice, it's because I'm doing the things I love at and are great at. And then I do some of the things I'm good at, but I like to do. And then the things that I'm great at, good at, but I don't like doing, I want to delegate those. And things I suck at and hate at, I delegate those. So delegation to me is probably the biggest challenge that we run into, because let's face it, most of us are control freaks because we run our own practice.
That's right.
And I would say delegation is the biggest key for that.
So talk to me on that key point. So a lot of docs that, as we're coaching, counseling with docs, they say, doc, man, I just, I brought on an associate and it didn't work out. I brought on an associate, didn't work out. I brought on an associate, didn't work out. One of the things I have found is someone's trying to, they're either number one, they're trying to bring on their complete polar opposite, because they say, well, if these are my strengths, I need to find someone who has their strengths as my weaknesses, but there's so much incongruency with how you communicate. So there's this incongruency. I find other docs who say, man, I just, I couldn't find David Warman. I just couldn't find my twin. So talk to me about that 80% rule, because I teach the exact same thing. Tell me about why is that so critical? Because you're not going to find you're not going to find you out there. Because
if you would find you, they wouldn't be working for you.
That's right. You wouldn't do that. So
I think the expectation, right? So the expectation of an associate, I think people approach associates in different ways. I see a lot of docs treat associates, but they're more independent contractors. Say, okay, I want you to build a practice, you'll get a percentage and stuff like that, but you're my associate. But they kind of do their own thing. Well, that's really hard to manage because you don't know how they're approaching that. There's no proven process within the practice, and they have their own patient base, and it's convoluted. I see the best associate-driven practice, if you want freedom, if you want to increase your time and capacity, is they got to do everything the same way you do. Okay, they may not have the same personality type you do, but you have a proven process within your practice. You have a proven day 1, day 2 process. You have proven 4-step office visit process when you're seeing a patient. Your technique is the same. If someone lies on the table, we're starting with leg checks or we're starting face up. Everything is reproducible. It's like going to Starbucks. If I order a caramel macchiato, it's the same at every Starbucks. And if you're running an associate-driven practice, the things must be very congruent.
Yes.
There's an art to adjusting, and there's a technique and an aspect, and there's a touch factor, and you'll get some people that prefer one doc or another, but the approach has to be the same. The system has to be the same. And I see a lot of docs, they don't have that commonality of what they're trying to achieve, and they don't have a system that says, oh, a patient lies down, this is what's going to happen. Yes. This is the conversation. This is how you're going to direct them to further care. They don't have that in place. And that's where I think is people really create a lot of chaos because there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yes. And Doc, that congruency, right? That's a factor of life, is it not? In your marriages, in your relationships, you have to have that level of congruency. Now, you and I both firmly believe every single person on this planet can have an abundance of what they want. You shared it. You being successful does not rob me. You being successful doesn't hurt me in any way. In fact, it elevates me. And for Doc, for any of you thinking of that right now, I want you to think of your town. If you're thinking of other docs as, man, they're stealing people from me, or they've got more time than me, they've got this and this. Doc, we want to help you change what's going on up here, this abundance mindset. because you can have absolutely everything you want. You've been given a life. You've had experiences in your life that have made you who you are, and you can tailor that. Now, for me, I'm Jake Hansen. I've had an incredibly blessed life. I've had severe traumas in my life, physical traumas, head and neck traumas, a recent one a couple of years ago. And because of my team, I thrive. I can take the time to heal. Last month, brother, we had a record month in our main practice, record month. And I was gone for almost 2 weeks of it for some healthcare concerns. I had to have a procedure done. I'd have a minor surgery. And man, we still were able to have an incredible experience. And we just celebrated over the weekend. We celebrated with Martinelli's sparkling cider because we don't drink.
Nice.
But I'll tell you, the team was through the roof excited. Everyone got bonuses. But as we shared, I said, hey, what is the success? Like, what is it that made us thrive this month? Everyone shared number one, it's our core values, Doc. We all lived our core values. And because we lived our core values, and the number one is love, we shared love for our teammates. We shared love for our practice members. We shared more love to our family members. And because of that, we showed up each day wanting to be here, excited to be here. And we think that was our overriding factor. You shared, I was listening to you share the right people in the right seats. From the book Traction, one of my personal favorites. I know it's one of your personal favorites. Doc, if you are not reading consistently from the greats, if you're not listening to this guy, one of the greats, this is what will allow you to have success. Success leaves clues, and success breeds success. When you're surrounding yourself by incredible people like David here, when you're surrounding yourself with incredible books, it will rub off in your life as you start to implement those principles. So you're absolutely right. In my practice, I can't find a Jake Hansen, but I can find 4 other guys who might be my 50%, my 60%, my 80%. And I take care of them so well so that they fight for me. When I was out for a full week, my clinic director said, hey, Dr. Hansen, he got really personal with me. He said, I want you to know, man, we are going to have the best week we've ever had. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to implement our core values. We're going to implement our principles. We're going to do the restoration chiropractic way because that's our practice, right? Doc, there isn't a single way, but you have to have your way. And if your way is convoluted, confused consumers don't buy. So if it's too confusing, you need to look at a system. And that's if I were to, in studying who you are, David, that's what I would say you have become a master at, is systems. Being able to develop a system that's tried, tested, and proven in the business world, especially the chiropractic world. And I would love if we could, if I could ask you a few more questions in regards to systems.
Sure.
When it comes to the doc, again, who is highly successful, you talked about delegating, bringing on the right person. What about the doc who can, they're kind of barely making ends meet? What are one of the incongruencies you see in their systems?
They don't have a reproducible system. They fly by the seat of their pants. It's probably one of the systems. When I come into an office and I'm seeing a doc that's challenging, we have to dive into who that person is, because they have their own barriers. And there's 5 different doctor archetypes that are out there. And most people don't realize this. And you fall into an archetype, and your behavioral patterns will fall into this archetype, because we got the relationship builder archetype, who thinks just as long as I'm really nice and people like me and all this, I'll be successful. Not necessarily true. It's good for retention, but initially it's not necessarily true. The other thing is we got the hard work. It's like, I'm just going to push and push and push and work hard. Well, you can work hard on the wrong things. And I see a lot of docs let the urgent overtake the important, and then they're in trouble all the time. You got the soloist, and I'm a soloist by nature, the lone wolf doc who thinks I can do it better than everyone else, so I'm going to do it my own way. And sometimes the ego gets involved and gets in the way. And then you have the reactive problem solver who thinks that they have to solve everyone's problem. They're in a day one and they're already telling the patient what they should be doing and stretching before they even considered, are they a candidate for my care? And then you got the challenger who actually challenges people to make better decisions, and, sometimes is a little abrasive. But one of the biggest things I tell when I talk to docs, especially new ones that are struggling, even successful ones that are having a hard time delegating to associates, and this may be a little controversial, but we don't sell chiropractic. Because if you're selling chiropractic or an adjustment, you're a commodity. Then you're in competition. And then they're going to say, well, who's closer or cheaper? You're selling a solution to someone's problem, but your chiropractic is the process.
Yes.
And if you can come down, that's like, I know what my solution, my proven process is, and I know how to communicate and convey it. So I'm asking the right questions. So the patients are giving me the right answers and they're coming up with their own agreements that this is the right solution. You don't have to sell anymore. They're asking for your care. And that's the goal. The trick is, can you ask the right questions to get patients to make their own self-realizations that they're making good decisions? Because you can basically sell someone into care. You can close them, you can do whatever you want. And what I find statistically is they say yes initially, but they don't follow through. They got what they wanted out of it. Maybe it was pain management, and then they left. So statistically, I'm really good at signing people up and closing people. And then most patients live within 6 to 12 visits. Well, then you didn't really sell them the care plan. They have to come up with the idea that, yes, this is the only solution to the problem that I have. And I have to actually commit to the care plan. But if you don't ask the right questions, they get buyer's remorse, they reject it. And then ultimately you have a practice of full turnover. And so it's the communication cycles are also another important factor that. So you have to have a right system on how you communicate to a person by asking the right questions so they can say yes to you.
So for a doc, I love it when you start talking. So you guys, success leaves clues, right? People who are way smarter than David and I, and Dave is a smart guy. People are way smarter than us. Success leaves clues. I love reading the books from the greats. I love, reading Think and Grow Rich. And I see all of my entrepreneur heroes and friends and colleagues and associates. And when I hear them share the same concepts, I think, oh man, that's a concept from Dale Carnegie. That's a concept from Tony, Robbins. Hey, that's a concept from Donald Trump. That's a concept from so-and-so, right? Because success leaves clues. When you start talking about the 5 different types, you guys, you have to understand, who are you? Because again, you don't need to be me. You need to be who you are, but there are principles, there are strategies, there are systems that you need to implement. So what is one of the simplest systems you have found for developing systems? What's something that you use? I know there's so many different, there's different communication channels. There's Loom became a good video thing, and Trainual become a new big thing for generalized businesses.
School, there's Trainual, there's all Kajabi, there's all kinds of platforms out there. I think you got to keep it as simple as possible in the beginning. Okay. Like simplicity is the reproducibility of things. And you have to know what your vision is. Because if you don't have a vision for where you're going, you're just like, I'm just driving in any direction. And the way what I do when I go to offices, I actually go inside someone's office for 2 days and I watch them in practice and I see where the bottlenecks are. I see what the communication style is. I see all the stress points that are creating havoc in there. And then we take them through a process where we say, okay, we got this division, this division, this division, this division. Where are the weaknesses in each division? What are the opportunities and what do we need to change in these things so that we have a true strategy? Because you can't fix them all the time.
Right.
And if you're not creating it down to 5 things that you're focusing on for the next 90 days, it is too much. It's convoluted. And I realized that the human brain works in 90-day cycles. If we set goals that are too far out, we lose focus. That's way down there. If it's too short, we get too emotional because, we're not on track. And it's a 90-day cycle gives you wiggle room. Like when you're setting goals in your office, set them at 90 days. You can course correct along the way, but then you got to look at, okay, what's the bottleneck? What's stopping us? Is it the front door? I'm not getting enough new patients. Maybe that's my weakness. Is it the side door? They're leaving. They're not completing care plans. Or is it the back door? They're not re-signing on and staying for wellness care. One of these is what's sinking your practice right now. So then we got to look at what's one strategy we can put in that stops to change this effect. I take all my clients through this drop visit stat. Everyone talks about PVA in the chiropractic world. Hey, what's your PVA? What's this? I think PVA is bullshit. Because you can have some patients that have been with you for years and you've seen them hundreds of times or even thousands of times. But some people you only see 2 times. But when are they leaving you is the question. If I start seeing, you start to lose people at visit 8, well, then something along your day 1, day 2 was more salesy. I see people leaving after visit 12 to 14 to 16. Your re-exam's not very strong. We have to create a strategy here. After 36 visits or 30, whatever your initial corrective plan is, they're not re-signing. You're not future pacing enough. There's something that you're not re-engaging. You're going based on just life effect stuff instead of fear worsening. You're changing things up. So You got to look at data before you create a strategy. I live in the facts, not in the fiction. I know so many people that think they're really good at one thing that I look at the stats of it. It's like, you're not so good here, buddy. Unfortunately, oh yeah, I can close. I'm 90% closer. Yeah, but they're staying for 3 visits and you're recommending 30. You're not really closing them. They're saying yes initially, and then you're not looking at what's happening after the fact. You got to look at every aspect of your practice and have a stat for it, because you can manage based on facts, not on emotion. And if you can put those in place, you can manage staff that way. You can manage yourself that way. You can predictability comes from that. So then you can actually create goals that are attainable, but you got to know where you are to where you're going. So I have a vision of where I'm going. Then I got to reverse engineer how to get there, because here's where I'm at. And what do I have to course correct along the way? But systems is, you got to start with something really basic. Find someone that's successful and copy. That's what I did. I started with coaching programs, and I kind of did it their way. And then, okay, I agreed with this. I didn't agree with that. I kind of changed this. And this worked for me here. And I hired someone else. I probably hired everyone out there in the past 25 years. And I've been around this for 52 now. So I've seen it all in every direction. But ultimately, you got to pick someone to follow through on. And you were talking about reading books, and I heard this from here. I heard this. It's not about having an amount of knowledge. It's how much knowledge do you apply? We can all read the same books, but if you don't use it and apply it in your framework, it's useless. It sounds good. It's sexy when you talk, but it ain't producing anything. How do you get it to produce? You actually have to apply.
Yes. You guys, he hit something so simple, but what is it that you really want in your life? What do you want in your practice? What are your non-negotiables that you live by and live for? You can have absolutely everything you want. Do you have a vision? What is your vision? I was talking to a colleague who said, he's like, I've always wanted, he goes, I want to put God first. He's like, in everything. He's like, in my other life, man, I had my Ferraris. I had he had a 42,000 square foot home, not 4,200, 42,000. Beautiful place in Georgia. Had his Ferrari, had a helicopter pad. He's like, I was not fulfilled in my life. And he's a chiropractor. He's like, I was not fulfilled. And so he goes, I went back to bare bones. And so as he was talking to me, I said, well, what's your vision, man? What's your vision? What do you really want? And he said, I'd only done vision off of monetary gains. I didn't really look at it like, what do I want in my life? What fulfills me? What fulfills my family? And we discovered, he says, I want to work with my family. I want to create a place where my kids can have a job, something that speaks to each of their skill sets. And that's what we've done for him, is we've created a true family practice where each of his kids have a responsibility. And to see this guy who is a multi-millionaire who is now lit up living on purpose, but we had to discover what his vision was. And then, as you said, reverse engineer that with the right people and systems that can help you. We discovered,
and you linked it to his core values. Like you talked about earlier, right? Vision without the core values is just a wish. So you got to put them together at the same time, because then you're making decisions that are not on the right core values, and then you'll regret it later on.
Yes.
And huge.
That's huge, you guys. So look at what you're doing right now. If it's incongruent with what you believe, if it's incongruent with your true core values. And so I think I have like 25 core values that I truly value. We whittle it to 12. I can whittle it to 7 of the main core values that I live by. And in my personal life, my family life, and my activities I get paid for life, if I'm not achieving those, if I'm not living and achieving the priorities within those core values, man, I don't feel fulfilled. I start getting distracted. I notice I start getting sick. I notice I want to take more vacation. And when you get into a state of abundance and you can take side vacations whenever you want, or focus on a side gig, something else is going to suffer. Either you will, your health will, your main business will, something will. But getting these things in priority, having the right systems in place with the right teams in place, it completely avoids that. So yeah, thank you for that. Another question for you. A lot of entrepreneurship, owning your own business, or I have docs that have multiple partners, within businesses. Again, achieving what you want to achieve, there has to be a lot of self-drive, right? There has to be a lot of self-drive. And for you, I saw there were 2 things that help you within that self-drive. Number one is having an accountability group, a true accountability group, and then also being able to have a routine that routinely gets your mind and body into gear. And I love when you live by fire. So would you mind talking about your accountability group? And again, I have a lot of docs who, it's very sad to hear them say they think it's a state of pride that if all the success hasn't come from them, that they're worthless. I stand on the shoulders of giants, man. My success comes from so many good people. So talk about your accountability group, and then talk about this fire routine that you live each day.
Yeah. So my accountability group, we've been together for now, I believe about 14 years or 15 years. It's right within that. And we meet once a week on Zoom, and we go over how's everything going in each the divisions of our life first, and then we work on a project together. So we're going to learn something, we're going to teach something. So it's always about constant, never-ending improvement. But having an accountability group has changed my life dramatically, because I'm with a level of peers. So there's 4 of us in our group, and we all go ups and downs in lives, divorces, deaths in the family, things of that nature. And without them, I don't know where I'd be today. And they also push you when you're screwing up. Sometimes you need the right people to tell you, hey, you're not doing what you could be doing, and then kick you in the ass. And that, if you can surround yourself with people that are like-minded, goal-oriented, and like always want to push each other, phenomenal. And it's been a blessing in my whole life having that. It's saved my life, per se, I would say, in that sense.
Wow.
And then learning to set routines into place. Like, I know Tony Robbins has his hour of power, and there's all kinds of things of that nature. But I do 4 different things that I try to focus on. I'm not perfect on it. I screw up from time to time, all this. But I try to live what I could call life on fire. Now, fire, F stands for my fitness. To me, I can't be a contradiction to my children, to my patients, to the people I'm coaching if I'm not taking care of myself.
Right.
So am I working out every morning? Am I putting something nutritiously into my body every morning? Am I at least feeding my engine body? And then there's the insight, or your inspiration. Are you reading something, listening to something that's going to get you motivated, that's self-improving on that? And it doesn't have to be, I have to read a half hour. To me, when I read something or I listen to something, is once I get that aha moment, I'm done. Because then I write it down, and then I try to teach it to someone. Because if I can teach it, I own it. And that's a big thing. So when you're trying to train your staff, they should be able to teach it back to you. If they can't, they're not trained. So that's an insight there. And then I look at my relationships in my life, my significant other, my kids. Am I doing something to foster that? Am I showing them how I love, honor, and appreciate them in some way that morning, that day? And then I have to work on my entrepreneurial side, the E. Okay. Am I learning something that's going to help me in business or in my professional life in some way? Whether it's communication, whether it's business, whether it's finance, what am I doing to have an improvement? And again, it's not, I need to learn a whole course. It's, I learned one thing today that I can apply. Every morning, I do 4 things to some degree that gets me in a headspace where I can actually produce and get better at something. And some days I'm going to get better at golf today. I'm going to do something on that. That's my fitness aspect. I'm in the gym probably 6-7 days a week because I have to do that. That's my decompression time. That's I'm not a social butterfly. I'm not talking to a bunch of people. But I need that every day. But then I actually need to fuel my body with something healthy so that I can actually have the energy to do stuff during the day. You're constantly evolving.
I love that. And you guys having, again, there's 100 different systems out there. But if you're listening to this and you're saying, man, if you don't know exactly what you're doing today. Now, again, there's a time where there's a mental health day where we did a podcast with a gentleman. He said, about once a month, I schedule a day where I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, I'm just going to connect. I'm going to disconnect to connect. He's like, I go on a drive and I'll go left and then I'll go right and I'll take 5 rights and I'll go left. And he goes, that's one of the ways I decompress, right? I have another buddy in Costa Rica, a colleague out there who has several practices and businesses. He goes, all I'm going to do today is I'm going to surf. He goes, and the coastal line goes for about 7 or 8 miles. And he goes, I don't know if I'm going to end here or end there or end there. He goes, but I'm okay with it. I know that what I'm going to do at the end of the day is I'm going to surf today and I'm going to disconnect or reconnect. And he comes back with revelation, inspiration. Doc, you need a system though. live life on fire. I absolutely love that. Power hour. I have I call mine my non-negotiable routine, where every day at 9 o'clock, I start my day tomorrow. I review my day. What do I want for myself, for my relationship with myself and with God, my family, and the activity I get paid for? What are the priorities that I'm going to be living that day? And then I go through, yep, I have to work out. I have to feed myself emotionally, physically, spiritually. I go through my routine. Doc, you need a routine. And if you don't have something, David said, copy it, take it. So for Doc, for those people who are feeling, I have multiple systems, but I'm not really implementing one major thing. I'm kind of shooting from the hip. I have a very personality driven practice, but if I take a step back, I'm going to get hosed. How do those people get a hold of you to be able to see, would you be a right fit for them, to be able to communicate, to be able to figure out, is there something that they can do to be in more congruency with what they want in life? How do people get a hold of you?
Well, probably the easiest way is email me at warmanway, WARMANWAY @gmail.com. That's the one I do it the most. You can look at earntheircare.com for some of my communication systems. But if you email me, I'll send you a business question evaluation. And we'll break down your business into all the 4 different divisions and all this. And I'll give you some insight, whether you hire me or not, to say, hey, you know what, maybe you should do this direction. At least you'll be going in the right direction on that. But you have to have awareness, right? Awareness leads to choices, which leads to change. If you're not aware, you don't make good choices, you don't change, or you change the wrong things. So let's make sure you're putting energy in the right areas.
When you see someone like David who's created something so incredible, Chiro Freedom producers, success leaves clues. When you see someone who can live the lifestyle that they want with enthusiasm, and again, I am very much a extroverted introvert, right? And I live the life that I love. You and I couldn't practice more differently, but I would dare say that we both love what we do, and we both live by purpose. And we both have a high level of success doing something completely different, but we both have different personality types, different backgrounds, but we both discovered that. Doc, listening, you need to discover that. My colleague, multi-millionaire, makes way more than I do, left the other business to say, that doesn't fulfill me. I want what you want. Yes, I'll be taking, a $10 million, $30 million a year cut, but I'm not fulfilled. Doc, that's who we can help. To the doc who is barely scraping by, thinking, do you need to sell your practice? Can you not even start your own practice? Are you associating? Talk to David, talk to myself. We'd be happy to help you. So it's WARMAN, warmanway @gmail.com. We'll have a link down below. Dave, thank you so much for the pearls. Again, these 30 minutes always go by so fast. I appreciate you. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for sharing that you have to have vision. To reverse engineer that vision, you can have whatever you want, bringing on the right people through delegation. I appreciate you, brother. And I wish you God's richest blessings, my man. May you and your family be abundantly blessed.
Hey, thanks for what you do. You're taking the time and energy to help others, and that's great. So I appreciate your time.